Hi, everyone. It's my pleasure today to welcome you to an interview with Abby Ginsberg. She is a producer of award-winning social justice documentaries and a Peabody Award-winning director who lives in Berkeley, California. Yay, my old stompy grounds. Um, Her film Barbara Lee, Speaking Truth to Power, won the 2022 NAACP Image Award, and the doc on which she served as consulting producer, The Barber of Birmingham, about civil rights workers in Alabama, was nominated for a 2012 Academy Award. There's so many more notable works we could mention throughout your 30-year plus career.
Yeah.
Um, Abby, such as working with the likes of Jane Fonda, Lily Tomlin, Cory Booker, George Takei, Alfre Woodard, uh, Cory Booker, did I already say that? Michael Moore, Danny Glover, and Edward James Olmos. But Kola Kavod, for all you've done and contributed to the world of cinema. And welcome to the Chicago Festival of Israeli Cinema to talk about your latest film, Labors of Love, the life and legacy of Henrietta Zoll. Thanks.
Thank you for having me.
Sure. Um, so I know you have some skin in the game. I mean, who else is related to Henrietta Zoll on both sides of her family?
Well,
Uh,
no, it's both sides of my family. It's
no,
like I'm related to her and related to the man who broke her heart. So that
yeah.
puts me at this very unique intersection.
Yes, yes, yes. Okay. And so what finally, I know you had heard about her as the famous old on your mother's side um and you knew about her your whole life, but what made you consider her a film subject?
That's a very good question. I think this was the film that was always sort of sitting on my shoulder, and for which I was like thinking, am I ever going to really do this? So 20 years ago, I sort of got hit by the bug of I should make this film because again, I knew where I stood in terms of her family, and I'm the filmmaker in my family, so maybe I should move forward with this. And I did literally like one thing, which is I put a small little notice in the Hadassah magazine saying, if you or anybody you know was a member of Youth Aliyah, please contact me because I'm considering making a film about Henrietta Zold.
Oh,
I
wow.
got several answers. I printed them out from my computer. I got email responses, and I never looked at the file again until I actually started making the film. I didn't
Oh,
follow up with any of the people. Some were in Israel, some were here. And I sort of dropped the project because I wasn't quite ready for it. With a film like this, and with every other film I've made, you basically know you're going to be spending 3 to 5 years of your life on it. So it has to be the right time, because if
yeah.
it's not the right time, you're in constant kind of conflict about doing the film.
Yes.
20 years before, I wasn't quite ready for reasons that really had to do with my own age and what else I was working on, and opportunities that I didn't want to say no to. So I did nothing except put these things in a file. And then when I came back to the project, somehow I came back feeling like now is the time. I think there was something about my own age, being over 70, meant that Henrietta, who did so much between the time that she was 70 and when she died at 85, that I felt
Yeah.
like, well, I better be in dialogue with this. So that got me going. And I just sort of thought, well, let's just kick this project, let's begin it and sort of see what happens. And once I was in it, which meant that I interviewed primarily the American scholars that are in the film. There were 4 American women scholars that I interviewed for the film.
Uh-huh.
Once those interviews were done, I knew I had to make the film because from talking to all of them, I knew how important she was to women whose life had been spent dealing with issues of famous American Jewish women. So then I was like, okay, then I was launched. And then
Yeah.
I went to Israel, et cetera, et cetera. But it really, the process of my deciding to, commit to this film
Yeah.
really required my being older than I was at 50, when I wasn't old enough. I didn't get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, and by the time I embraced it, I was really grateful to be on the journey of trying to uncover who Henrietta was and trying to understand what made her tick and trying to understand how come she never said no to anything, etc. So that and at the age of 70, I was ready to sort of be in dialogue with all of that.
Good. Good for you.
That's
I
how I
think
got
it's really fitting. For first of all, full disclosure, I am a Hadassah Life member, and I met Barbara Goldstein, appears in your film, who is a wonderful Hadassah historian in her own right, you know. But anyway, I think it's fitting that on this day, that when the 20 living hostages came home from Gaza, and the hopefully it's the end of the latest war there, that we're talking about a notable binationalist who lived from, unfortunately, 1860 to 1945, 3 years before the State of Israel was founded. But she was obviously way ahead of her time.
Yes, I mean, let me say yes to that. Amen to that. And let me
Yeah,
say, when I started this film, I had not really heard of the Yehud Party. I didn't really
right.
understand Breach Shalom. I mean, the great thing about this project was how much I uncovered that was relevant to me and to people I know that
Oh,
didn't
I
know the
know.
story. I
You
mean, we all grew up knowing Henrietta founded Hadassah. Maybe your grandmother had been active in Hadassah, or you're a lifetime member. I wasn't even a lifetime member. My
right.
grandmother didn't give me that. So it was like, whoa. So when we hit the binationalism story,
Yeah,
it felt like she was speaking from the grave to today.
I know.
And so that was, I mean, literally at each step of the way, everything that I sort of learned about Henrietta, uncovered about her, learned about her binationalism, etc., made me respect her even more than I did at the start, which was I respected her quite a bit. I just didn't know much about her. And
Right.
then in the process of learning about her, I was like, this woman was truly fantastic. And even if I had not been Louis Ginzberg's granddaughter, I would be grateful for the fact that she ended up spending her time, her energy, her commitment, her life force in making the world a better place as she saw it, rather than being somebody's wife. And in those days, those choices seemed pretty stark. I mean, my grandmother, who married Louis Ginsburg, was his wife until the
Yeah,
day he died. And then she began to find her way into the external world. But she,
right.
until then, she was making the matzo ball soup. So I just feel like,
Exactly. I couldn't see Henrietta doing that, but many people who have experienced curveballs like she did when she was, jilted by your grandfather, have these experiences in their lives, and they either hide under the covers or, and but she actually, founded a social services empire, and she was like a force of nature. I mean, she really made
but
the most of it.
yeah. And one thing that I think the film tries to do, we don't know how totally successfully it does it, is to
It
say,
is successful. It's very universal, and
uh,
that's what is really great about it. You don't have to know anything about Hadassah to appreciate this person and
yeah, but I think what I was going to say is that the
yeah,
work he did early on creating the Russian night school, I mean, let me
yeah,
say, I care about immigrants and their ability to speak English. It would never occur to me that I should create the school at the age of 27 or whatever she was at the time that
right,
is going to make the difference and then become essentially the precursor to all ESL programs. Who thinks
right,
like that?
yeah,
So this was a woman who not only when she saw a problem, she decided she had to solve it, but she was able to come up with, kind of institutionally rigorous ways of addressing the problem that
right.
have remained to today. That's part of what you want to say about her is that
Ex-
we have ESL programs that stand on her shoulders to today, and Hadassah hospitals both stand on her
And
shoulders.
Youth Aliyah,
And Youth
because
Aliyah, which is still going.
so exactly, because so many kids, I mean, they're not Holocaust survivor kids, but they are kids that have fallen through the cracks of society and are mainstreamed through these living in these group homes, which are absolutely amazing. So,
And just one other thing, which is
sh
about the Ukrainian
sh
Jewish children, because Meir Shvea was one of the places where Ukrainian Jewish kids came, and there were so many of them that they actually got to create an orchestra within Meir Shvea, which was a youth village and still
wow,
is a youth village. So it's like,
wow.
yes, when in the film, when the guy who runs Yoram Pania says, I feel like we're closing the circle on Henrietta Zold, what he's really saying, and it's not quite in there, we didn't quite get the full sentence, is
Yeah.
by doing what we've done for these Ukrainian Jewish refugee kids,
Yeah.
100 years later, we are still emulating and reproducing the efforts that Henrietta Zold, brought to us in the 20s, in the early days, in the pre-Holocaust days.
Exactly. So riffing off that, one can't help but wonder, given her vision and her strength and her courage, in founding the Palestinian, which was pre-state Israel, Palestinian healthcare system, Hadassah, Youth Aliyah, like we talked about, um, what role she would have played in the new Israeli government, founded only 3 years after her death. This is what
Yeah, I don't think she would have actually. I
you
think,
don't.
no, I don't. I actually think Henrietta kind of kept herself apart. Henrietta was not Golda Meir. I mean, Golda wanted a role, and I don't think Henrietta did. I mean, and again, she was by then she was really coming to the, even if she didn't see it, she was kind of coming, she was winding down, shall we say, at the age
Yeah.
of 85.
Yeah.
So I don't, had she been 50, maybe, but she didn't have a lot of success when she took on governmental roles, which she actually did. That's also not in the film because it was just like I wasn't doing her resume. I needed to do the things that really were, I thought, transformative. And
Yeah.
being the head of a, half-baked education system at the time
Right.
didn't really seem relevant. But so she didn't find it easy to work for whatever the Palestine mandate government was. And she did
Right.
a little bit of it with the education department and then wanted to get out of there. So she was, I think, most effective and preferred to, be in her own little corner doing what she did best.
Being an
And
NGO head or whatever. I mean,
however we would now call it,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Oh,
She
that's
was
interesting.
she was much more um it's like she was her own kind of visionary, and she did not find working for a bunch of men, as we say in the film, it didn't necessarily call forth for her most creative side. So I think for her, she felt stymied and hampered the few times she actually did go into kind of what we would call government service, and it didn't work out for her. So I would say she
Oh,
was not missing an opportunity when the state of Israel came into being. I mean, I think it isn't like she had done so many things that would have then empowered her to become or created her as a model. I don't think so. So I
right.
actually think I think her lifespan, it's something very particular in kind of the overall arc of Jewish history, and I think it actually worked out for everybody that she was not around when the state of Israel was formed. I think it would have, there were parts of how it was formed that I think probably would have been very hard for her, and she wouldn't have had a role to play. I mean, the people who ended up fighting the War of Independence, ending up in power, etc., they were not her closest political allies. So I think that actually would have been quite difficult for her. And I think, in a way, what I'm saying is she kind of died at the right time. I
Interesting.
mean, seriously.
No, that's really interesting. That's really
I mean, I
interesting.
think in terms of what would have caused sorrow and conflict and been disappointing for her, I think the state of Israel coming into being would have been good on the one hand, but how it all happened, I mean, I'm projecting. Obviously, I have no idea what she really would have thought.
If we could
Um,
only talk to her now,
yeah, yeah,
it's
exactly, or
really,
at least try to listen to her talking to us.
yeah, right. No, that's great. So let's talk a little bit about the massive undertaking. And this is what a lot of people don't understand. What it take you mentioned it takes 5 years or at least, to make a documentary. But um, you know, doing the research, and I know you had some personal photographs, but to go through all that archival footage and creating a story that, like I said before, not you don't have to be a Hadassah member to appreciate is really something. So
Well, I thank you for saying that. I mean,
sure.
the archives are all over the place. There are archives at the Jewish Museum of Maryland. There are archives at the Central Center for Jewish History in New York. That has all the Hadassah archives.
Right.
And the really great thing about Henrietta is she was an often photographed woman. And that really helped. I mean, she doesn't look gorgeous in any of those photos, but she permitted herself to be photographed everywhere she went. And so we had a lot to work with, which I really and Hadassah did a great job of documenting their early years. I
Right.
mean, good for them that this stuff existed. And there was a woman named Hazel Greenwald who shot some footage in the early years of Hadassah that, are available
Wow.
in the archives. So the great thing is these archives exist, some in Israel. There's the Spielberg archive had some stuff. There's an archive at the Israel Cinematheque that had material. And then there was the Central Zionist Archive, which is a sort of library archive
Yeah.
of papers and photos. And then there was the Schlesinger Library, which was sort of my last stop on the archival junket. And that's where I found this compromise document that's in the film. So that was kind of the hidden gold for me, was that compromise document, because nobody had referred to it in any of the. Oops, I'm frozen here.
Yeah.
Hold on. Let's see if we can. Okay. Yeah. So that was a document that I found at the Schlesinger Library in Cambridge, and that was another. Just you never know what you're going to find. And one of the things I loved, even though it was in Hebrew and so I couldn't understand the
Yeah.
actual writing, is that at every group of Youth Aliyah kids that came over,
Yeah.
wrote her thank you notes, created scrapbooks for her, detailed their experiences so that she could end up feeling like, I not only did I save their lives, but they are having meaningful, fruitful lives
Yeah.
as they leave the kibbutzim or the youth villages and move on to do whatever they're going to do next. That was extremely well documented, and with incredible gratitude to her for what she had made possible in their lives.
Right. I love when they said she never had any children, but she was the mother of thousands. That was, that's
True.
really,
I mean, it's really true. And she says it in her own letter. She says, I can't wait to go to Haifa and then see my children, asleep in their own beds after they arrived from Germany. It's like she thought of them as her children. And another thing about her, which was,
yeah.
we say it, but it needs underlining,
Yeah.
is that you don't just bring 10,000 kids, as you say, from inner city Germany, Berlin, Frankfurt, wherever, to agricultural,
Right.
uninhabited, Palestine without some issues. So to the extent that kids had issues, and they did, every concern that they had literally went to her and Hans Beit, and they had to fix it. Whatever the problem was, I'm on the wrong kibbutz because I'm religious and there's no religious observation here, or I'm on the wrong kibbutz because it's too religious and I'm not religious. Whatever it was, there were things that did not work for individual kids. And she took it upon herself, along with Hans, her partner, essentially, you know, to figure out, well, if this isn't working for them here, where do we move them? How do we make this okay? This one wants to get married to that one on another kibbutz. How do we get them together? She was a constant problem solver for all these kids.
Well,
And
I
that's
mean,
part
it's
of the mother.
amazing when she had all these projects going on essentially at once that she was so hands-on. You know,
Astounding. Not just, at a time when it wasn't, people weren't calling you on a cell phone. They were
right,
writing you a
right.
letter
A
and it got
note,
there by the
handing you a
post.
note to scrap a paper and not even
Exactly.
post it. They didn't even post it.
Of course. And so the fact that I mean, number one, it is amazing when you look at all the correspondence that she personally took care of. Again, something else that there just wasn't time for in the film is there are constant lists that are like, um, it- groups. So you at any time you wanted to know how many kids were applying from Czechoslovakia, Poland, Hungary, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
She had these lists, and maybe there'd be hundreds from each of these different countries, and only three or four would get visas. So at
Wow.
all times, she was keeping track of what the need was versus what the accessibility was. Britain was in the middle making a mess with their visas, and it was a very complicated. I mean, we simplify it a little bit in the film.
Yeah.
This was not an easy project to oversee. And again, if you have to go to Germany, you have to get there by boat. If you have to go to England, you have to get there by boat. I mean, she wasn't flying anywhere.
Right.
So everything took 3 weeks in between. It was nuts. And she pulled it off. And as you say, she was constantly juggling, work on 16 different projects all at the same time, plus the individual problems she had to solve.
Right. So
Pretty
what would
impressive.
what would you say? I mean, given her vast, accomplishments, what would you say is the most enduring part of her legacy? I mean, you mentioned the problem solving, her, the binationalism, the saving, 11,000 kids,
I mean,
organizational skills. What?
it's sort of all of it, but the question is, how do you distill that into something that would you would say she was unique in that she had?
Right,
And I would say this: she had both vision and extraordinary administrative competence. And most of us are one or the other. We have some vision and we can't implement it. We have to hire somebody to be our secretary,
right.
or our assistant. Or you're really good at the administrative thing and somebody else is providing the vision. And she combined in a very, I believe, very unique way, both the big picture vision of what she was trying to accomplish and the administrative detail, the capacity to be focused on the details to actually get it done. So that's, I'd say, vision and administrative competence, and those are rarely found in the same person. So
Right.
kudos to her for that.
No, you're
And
right.
I mean, and she was tireless. I mean, she just didn't give in to the fact that she was tireless in that she never acted like she was tired.
Right.
Um, and I think she felt the pressure of the times she was living in. I mean, there was a way in which, because she understood what the Nazis were all about and what they were doing, that, she felt like it was on her shoulders to save as many people as possible.
Yeah.
So the sense of, I'm doing something that nobody else seems to be really doing. There are a few people out there in the world helping her, but not many. Um, and she just really, I would say, rose to the challenge with that unique combination of skills that most of us have one side or the other. We're strong in one and weak in the other, and she was actually really well balanced. And I would say that's rare to find. Um, and so, I mean, credit to her for what made her unique in that way is what I would say. That's I mean, that's in a way what her legacy is. And so it challenges each of us to think about, well, where are my strengths and where are my weaknesses? How
Right.
do I think about getting help from my dark side? How do I, if I'm not too good on the vision thing, how do I get people to help me envision what it is I think I'm trying to do?
Right.
Versus, okay, I'm great on the vision thing and I'm really bad on the administrative detail part. Who's going to help me do that? So I think that is kind of the challenge, is to sort of be able to analyze what your own strengths are and look for where you need help. And
Right.
I would say something else, which is, this is not so much about Henrietta as a personality, but it is, I mean, the longevity of her vision is also something worth acknowledging.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of organizations come and go, but from 1912 to the present, Hadassah has been there, at least providing a lot of different kinds of support. But the support for those hospitals is so deep and remarkable. And the level of service that they provide for the whole Middle East is just worth noting.
I know. It's still the largest employer in Jerusalem. I mean, and back to the binationalism thing, they employ so many, Arab doctors and they serve the entire community. It doesn't matter who you are. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah. And so we just
And
want
the
to,
research.
and the research. I mean, we just want to acknowledge. I mean, I have a friend who was in a terrible car accident in Israel, as it turned out, on his way to the airport. And he was saved at Hadassah Hospital. I mean,
Wow.
he had the kind of cardiac surgery maybe the only they could do at that time. Um, so yes, I mean, yes to that, and yes to the longevity, and yes to having had the vision of what this hospital needs to do and how it needs to be available to every resident of Israel, etc. Yes, all of that.
Right.
Um,
How did she die? I don't, it doesn't,
died. She had some ongoing, lung issues. She was in the hospital from sometime in mid-December of 1944 till she died in February of 45. And she was cared for by the nurses who had been part of the nursing school there. And so she was, I mean, she was at the Hadassah Nursing School. They must have had beds for people who were, chronically ill or whatever.
yeah.
nurses took care of her, and I interviewed a woman who's now probably over 100,
Me.
Judith Steiner Freud, who was one of the nurses that had the what she called the privilege of taking care of her. And she wasn't her main nurse; she was like a substitute nurse if one of her friends
Yeah.
couldn't do it. And she said it was such an honor and a privilege, to be by Henrietta's side in her last days. Um, so she was never that healthy, but she lasted a long time, and in the end, died within 2.5 months of being hospitalized. Um,
Yeah, because you wonder somebody like that. I mean, they think that you think that they're going to live forever because they're so strong and they have so much energy and they do so much.
yes,
I
and eventually, her body caught up with her. I
yeah,
mean, you can feel it in her letters. You can tell. She's rueing, as she says in the film, also. Not being able to spend her last days with her sisters, not being well enough to travel home. I mean, you're beginning to see her recognizing, this isn't going on forever.
mortality.
Yeah, the mortality is catching up with her, but it never really totally caught up with her because she, as I say, she was kind of, listening for daily reports about what was going on, even from her hospital room. And
Right.
people would come to see her. I mean, people were very both devoted to her and in some ways dependent on her for her insights. So, Judah Magnus would come visit her and various other people would come visit her.
Wow.
So she wasn't isolated in the end of her life.
Right. Well, that's good.
When you look at the number of people that attended her funeral, okay. I mean, we have a lot of friends. I'll have some people at my funeral, but I am not going to have 4 blocks worth of people.
Right. I saw that
Everybody
was a
from nursing
wonderful
school.
scene.
When you take a look at how many people, wanted to mourn her passing, that's on a crappy weather day. If the weather was really bad that day in mid-February, you just have to be really impressed. So
Right.
I'm really impressed. And as I said, I wanted to sort of show what it was like in Israel when she died, and I wanted to highlight that the New York Times really gave her due in an obituary at a time when they did not write obituaries for women very often.
Yes, I think so too. And
So I was just like, yes, let's acknowledge that in her day, people knew how important she was.
well, that and the fact that she has an Arab caretaker at her grave to this day, that was such a nice thing to add to the film because it shows how she was respected. It didn't matter if she was like an American woman living in Israel or Palestine, she was respected internationally, so in the New York Times. And then she has this family of Arab caregivers that are to this day are taking care of her grave.
I cannot wait for his name is Abed Asayed to come see this film. I mean, he was the gift to me of this journey. I mean, he was the living gift. Henrietta was the passive gift, but
Yes.
he was the living gift to me. I mean, I didn't know he existed. I didn't know he was going to be there at the grave. When we got there, he wasn't. We had to call him and get him there. And he's like, "Look, Henrietta didn't have any relatives. I'm not coming." And so my people got him to show up, and they said, "Well, maybe I don't know, but this woman claims she's a relative, so please come." And he eventually did.
That's interesting that he didn't know with her sisters. Did her sisters ever come?
Not after she died, because I think Bertha died not so long after that. So,
Uh,
so I don't think her sister, I mean, this is not an easy trip. Back in those days,
yeah.
she died in 45 and he's been doing I don't know. I don't think her sisters were alive, and I'm not sure any other relatives identified themselves. And I can tell you, I don't think any of my Zold relatives ever made it to that grave. So I probably was the first. It was
Yeah.
certainly the first that he ever met. But it was, but he was like, "I'm sorry, she doesn't have any relatives." I was like, "Yeah, well, she does.
Yeah.
I mean, we may be distant, but we're related."
Yeah.
So
Oh, absolutely.
anyway,
Absolutely.
I thought that was amusing, actually. But anyway,
It,
I can't wait for him and his wife to come see this film. They're going to, be honored guests.
Oh,
We're doing,
it's
we're doing
so
this.
great. And the fact that even though he didn't know her, but his grandfather did, and there were so many people in the film that knew her, like her nephew, that added a lot that they were able to give personal testimonies of.
Exactly. I was really glad I interviewed her nephew when I did. I mean, because again, he was gone a year later. So it's like, and so I missed some people clearly from the Youth Aliyah experience because 20 years earlier, there were a lot more of them alive.
Right,
But
right,
all I can say is I wasn't ready. I needed to wait till the film spoke to me so that I could do whatever I could do with it. And now this is the moment. It's like for whatever reason, this is and every film is in dialogue with the moment that it's released. So
right. That's true.
it would have had a different dialogue 20 some
It
odd
would
years.
have had, it would have been a totally different film.
But
I,
so
I,
I'm just grateful that here we are,
yes,
and I guess, for your audience, um, if people have, I mean, I just want to say, let me just say this. I am looking for other venues where the film can be seen. So if somebody has watched it through your film festival and wants to contact me, it's my name at Gmail. You can find me, Abby Ginsberg at Gmail. Let
okay.
me know because I am open to creating other film screenings for the film. And so let me just say that we're on the process of sort of doing our film festival tour at this point, but if there are local organizations that are interested or synagogues or whatever, community organizations, we stand ready to try to figure out how to do it.
I think everyone should see this film.
Well,
I
thank you so much.
because I mean, she was such an amazing woman, amazing person, human being, and all the things that she, like you said, her legacy is strong. It's still going on. And she focused on important things. Healthcare, education. Hello, those are
Yeah.
subjects we're
Hello,
still
right.
grappling with here, and she somehow solved it in for Israel. I mean, she really made it happen. So thank you, Abby, for creating this film and for talking to us today. It
Well,
was
I'm so glad to be able to do that. And again, thank you for screening for, programming the film as part of your festival. And thank you to the audience who gets to watch it.
of
So thank you
course.
with
And
us.
hopefully we'll see it in other venues, and we'll let people know if they're, this is so great for women's groups and for social justice groups and Jewish groups, and I mean even humanities festivals and
Yeah.
everything. I mean
But
it,
let
it
me let me say one more thing because
yeah,
maybe a viewer or somebody knows. Okay, I
sure.
can give the date and time that the film is going to be in Israel. So if anybody watching this has relatives, in and around Jerusalem, it will be at the Jerusalem Jewish Film Festival on
This
December
December.
this December, December 15th at 7 p.m. or 1900 as they say in Israel.
And it's a wonderful festival, you guys. Anybody who goes to it's such a little gem of a festival. You should really see. A lot of people go to the Jerusalem Film Festival in the summer, but this Jewish festival in Jerusalem in December is wonderful.
Well, thank you. Anyway, that's where it's going to be. December 15th, 7 p.m., Jerusalem Cinematheque, Jerusalem Jewish Film Festival. So
Thank you
tell
so
your relatives.
much. Thank you very much. Are you going to be there?
Yes, of course. I have to be. I got to be there to welcome Abed Sayed to, be
Oh, that's
recognized in that
right.
audience. Of
Oh
course
my
I'm going.
God, that's worth the price of admission just to see
Exactly.
his reaction to it. So
Well,
anyway,
thank you
thank you
so
so
much for having me.
thank you so
Great to be here.
much. And
Okay.
good luck on your future endeavors. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye
Bye.
bye, Abby.